Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Neeta Jain. She is a keynote speaker, performance coach, and wellness consultant. She helps high-achieving leaders create balanced success personally and professionally without burning out. So for those of you all who are considering becoming speakers, you probably have a lot of questions like how do you market yourself? How do you price your services? Basically, how do you get yourself out there? Number of questions. So let's see what Neeta has to say to answer those questions. So welcome to Teach the Geek interviews, Neeta.
Thank you so much, Neil. So happy to be here.
Wonderful. So when it comes to what you speak about, Neeta, how did you come to that speaking topic?
So I think it really arose from passion, anger, and just my own personal experiences. And so my story is a story of burnout as a caregiver. And I think when I moved from tech to wellness, I was at Amazon and then I went to a nutrition school. So I made this big shift. And I really wanted to figure out this whole work-life balance. So I think it all started with having all these questions for myself and solving it for myself. And then my clients. And then, so yeah, it started off with helping myself, helping my clients, and then just getting the message out on a bigger platform. And that's when TEDx came along, and that's what kickstarted this journey.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Okay, so you did a TEDx talk, and then after that, then you decided I'm gonna get into speaking. Yeah, okay. I've actually heard other people do that as well. With the work that you do as a speaker, what types of services do you provide clients?
Yeah, so I provide workshops, and it can be layered in. So it could just be a workshop, or what I also do is I do workshop followed by office hours, or I do group coaching, or one-on-one coaching. So I structure that engagement based on what makes most sense for the client.
Okay, and the coaching that you do with your clients has to do with them figuring out their work-life balance?
Exactly, yeah. How do they figure this out? What I say is like, how can you be a peak performer with peace? How do
Yeah.
you be a high performer with happiness?
Wonderful. Okay. So for the people who are listening or watching our conversation and they're thinking, I want to be a speaker. I've decided what I want to speak on. What other things do they need to have in place to put themselves out there as a speaker?
Yeah, so what I would say, somebody who's just starting out, I would just start getting yourself on different platforms. So this could be simply doing what I started off with just Instagram stories. I had a lot of hesitation of just getting in front of a camera and just even speaking for 15 seconds. And so back in COVID days, I would do Instagram lives and really getting my voice out, and really owning my voice. And every person's different. For me, having been an immigrant from India, I carried this accent with me, and making peace with how you speak, where you are with your language proficiency. And so, I would really start getting out there for somebody who's new. Um, I would also figure out, what are you passionate about? And that you can just talk. For example, if you're podcasting, what can you just talk for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, just because if you're passionate, you can talk for a long time. So I would dial into, what are you really passionate about talking? And then just getting out there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's well, yeah, it certainly is one of the most important things to do. You can have all these aspirations, but if no one knows that you are a speaker, well, what's the point? But I guess that leads into my next question. How do you actually go about marketing yourself as a speaker?
Yeah, and that's something, I'm still figuring that out. So to be honest, I'm a work in progress in terms of how do we market yourself. But again, the traditional way of creating content consistently and creating value consistently. So figuring it out and just focusing on one platform, I think that's something that that has helped me more recently. I think I was really spread thin across multiple platforms, and so I honed in on LinkedIn. And I started being, I think I have more work to do in terms of being more consistent in my content creation. Yeah, so I would say definitely doing more of that and figuring out your zone of genius when you are trying to figure out your content creation. I'm still figuring that out for myself. For some people, it's podcasting, while for others, it's writing. And so really figuring out, like, how do you feel like you best express yourself?
You mentioned that you wanted to focus on one platform. You picked LinkedIn. Why'd you pick LinkedIn?
Because I'm in the B2B space. So I started off in the B2C space, and then now my focus is in the tech industry. So tech companies is who I most work with. And a lot of those folks aren't as accessible on a Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. So LinkedIn is where I seem to get most quality conversations going.
What was your motivation to go from B to C to B2B?
So honestly, life came back full circle. So I left tech, and then during COVID, I got into the B2C coaching space. I created a digital course, a community. And then along through my clients who I was coaching, they're the ones who started bringing me into their teams and companies. So funnily, I started back with Amazon. One of my earlier clients was an Amazon, was at Amazon, and she brought me in to speak to her engineering teams. And I really felt like in flow, because I really understand what it's like to be an engineer, being on the other side. And it just brought me a lot more joy to be this outsider helping these folks not make the same mistakes that I did.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I think for a lot of people, when they start out giving or when they start out as speakers, there's a lot of outreach that they have to do. And when you do that, you don't always hear back from the people that you're reaching out to. How do you handle following up with people, if at all?
Yeah, that's, first of all, it's like, it's always hard when you don't hear back from people. So just for those of us who have some rejection sensitivity, I get you, because I also get a little deflated when, you put, but again, what's that term? The fortune is in the follow-up. My rule is I follow up 2 to 3 times, and every time I follow up, I provide 2 pieces. One is I provide a sense of urgency that, from their end. I also share like a link or a statistic, if possible, to show them why this particular speech or this talk is valuable for their company or their teams. So again, trying to think of, and again, I'm not always successful, but in my follow-ups, I try to provide some value to indicate some urgency on that could possibly be developing on their end.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, and then you said 2 to 3 times, and then after that, if you don't hear back after the 3rd time, then that's it.
Yeah, and then I space it out, and I do like maybe like I'll check in after, say, a quarter. And what's interesting, Neil, is that going back to content creation, because a lot of times it's my content that I'm creating, and I'm connected to some of these folks on LinkedIn. That's they're like, oh yeah, like it could be a reminder. It's almost like an indirect follow-up when you've connected with them, but then you're kind of sharing a case study or you're sharing an experience, a speaking engagement that you did with somebody else, or they see a testimonial and they're like, oh yeah, this is kind of also the problem. So sometimes that helps, because it's almost like a third-party verification in a way.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of LinkedIn as well. It's I'm on it pretty often, pretty much every day. But and yes, and posting, commenting on posts, it can get a lot. It can get a lot, but you certainly can get a lot out of it. So for the people who are listening and watching our conversation, Neeta, they decided this is something I want to do. I want to be a speaker. They figured out what their speaking topic is going to be. they're looking to, they're doing their marketing to put themselves out there as a speaker. And let's just say now they actually get some bites and people actually want to bring them in as a speaker. How should they handle figuring out how to price their services?
So there's no direct answer for this because as you probably know, Neil, like there's such a wide range in pricing. And when you're starting out, you may be on the lower side, and there are definitely tiers. But what is common across any price that you provide is, can you back up that price with your energy? Do you feel in alignment? And I think that's key, whatever price you quote. And so there is no direct answer for pricing. There are tiers, and every speaker has, like, depending on how long you've been in the industry. And it also depends on if you're building out your website, your testimonials, your speaker kit, and if you're looking for testimonials. And so what I like to tell people who are starting out is the non-monetary transactions, so the non-monetary items that could be videography or a testimonial. Does that help answer? Because there is no direct answer to that.
I wouldn't tell you if it didn't help, but I'm sure that the people that are listening can certainly get something from your answer. You mentioned the speaker kit, and as part of the speaker kit, typically there's a video. And I think for a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, that might be of concern. How do you get video for the speaker reel? How would you suggest people go about doing that?
And so that's where I would, going to the first question is really putting yourself out there, whether it's Instagram Reel. So my first iteration of my speaker kit had snippets of me speaking on podcasts as well. And so some people actually just create a video of them speaking. I was lucky that I had the TEDx by the time I decided to make a speaker reel, but it is a bit of a chicken and egg situation. So I would start with one speaking engagement, some podcasts. And it's okay if it's short. I would add in some testimonials.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you're right. It really is a chicken and egg type of issue. I mean, you can't get the video if you don't get engagements, but how do you get engagements without the video? But if you can get engagements that perhaps aren't insistent on having video, then maybe you can have someone come in and film video for you, and you can use that. Maybe you can even ask actually, here's my next question. For the speakers who are going out there, they haven't had a whole lot of speaking engagements. They're taking on engagements that perhaps don't pay a fee. But if they don't pay a fee, what could those speakers ask for in exchange for giving their presentations instead of a fee?
Yes. So there was one speaking engagement where they could not meet my full fee, but it was actually a university, and they had a really good videography crew. And they also featured me on their university's blog. So you can negotiate. So what I do as part of my speaker agreement, I also list out some non-monetary items that if they can fulfill all of them, well and good. But what I ask for is a testimonial, a feature, a blog feature if they have any media, but also a videography. If a lot of the companies and universities, for example, if you're in academia, they're well resourced with a videographer, or they may have budget for that. So yes, I would definitely ask for the videographer, but also the full copy of the whole recording of your talk.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Certainly, if you're going to go down on a fee, I think a lot of times people are just happy to be able to get an engagement in the first place, but you really do need to try to get something out of it in exchange. I mean, in addition to you being able to speak in front of people. And I think getting video, a blog feature, I think that's a really good one as well. And also you mentioned a testimonial. I think, that's definitely required. I mean, especially, if you do a good job anyway. If they think you did a good job.
The last item I would also say is permission to show a QR code so that you can build your email list, or permission to feature your aftercare services. So say if you're a coach and to talk about, I'm starting a new cohort. So getting permission to promote your services, because for a lot of times for the paid engagements, they don't allow me to promote my services. They don't allow me to add them to the list. And again, so it's definitely a negotiation. Those would be the two other items that I would ask for is email addresses and the ability to promote your services.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that makes perfect sense. But I've had other people on the podcast, Neeta, and I've asked them questions about speaker programs and how useful they are. Do you have any experience with speaker programs? And if so, well, what was your experience and what did you expect to get from them? And did you get what you expected?
So to clarify, what do you mean? Because when I think of speaker program, I think of two things. One is like somebody who's coaching you to speak, who's helping you with script writing. And then what I've also started seeing in the market is where they build your speaker kit, they build your speaker reel, and they help you pitch to different stages. I have not used a speaker program. I definitely have worked with multiple public speaking coaches and voice coaches as part of my TEDx journey. And I have to say that it was transformational because while you are finding your voice on stage, you will, or you may discover yourself. You may learn interesting things about yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, so what, yeah, when I was asking, it was more of the latter, but you said you didn't have much experience in that, but you did have experience with using speaker coaches. And
Yes.
I certainly can see how that can benefit you because they can point out things perhaps that you didn't see yourself and help you to improve what you're doing when it comes to giving presentations. And yeah, I totally see how that could be helpful. So when it comes to, okay, so now we have somebody who is coming from the tech field. They fancy themselves a speaker. They want to put themselves out there as a speaker. They've put together as much collateral as they can. They figured out what their speaking topic is. They're marketing themselves. They're getting speaking engagements. They're figuring out what their fees can be. What would a person need to have in place for them to make that switch from going from this technical worker to a full-time professional speaker?
It really depends on what this person wants and what lights them up. So there are some folks who really enjoy their 9 to 5, like they find their purpose, their impact in the 9 to 5. Whereas there are some folks who in tech, they really find their purpose on stages and they want to go all out in it. So it really depends on what is bringing you joy, and also everybody's financial situation is different. And so you have different responsibilities and commitments. And so I think that's a very individual decision, whether to go completely all out in speaking and leaving that comfortable 9 to 5 job. I think, yeah, so I've seen all kinds of combinations, but I have to say that speaking can be a full-time career, and because we all have finite capacity and there are only so many hours a day and you may travel. So at some point you may reach, if your speaking is taking off, you may reach, the last thing you want to do is burn out, is doing a 9 to 5 and doing this as a side hustle. So yeah.
Yeah, and they burn out, they can come speak to you, right?
Sure. But yeah, I mean, it really depends on one, the person's situation and what lights them up, and how much they enjoy, what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. This has been a great conversation, Neeta. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram and LinkedIn. So my handle on Instagram is I am Neeta Jain. And on LinkedIn, I don't know if you have show notes, but we can put the LinkedIn so that people can connect with me. But yeah, my website is neetajain.co.
Neetajain.co. Excellent. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Neeta.
Thank you, Neil.